All right, traders, welcome to today's recap video. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Wednesday, October 28th. Supposedly, I believe the strongest seasonal day of the year. Yeah, not so much. I believe that's what I heard today. I heard that a couple times today, that today was supposed to be the strongest day of the year in terms of seasonality. Yeah. Uh, so S&P, so these numbers are really nasty for the day. Qs, we'll kind of start there, finished down 3.9% for the day. These are large moves. SPY finished down 3.4%. IWM fared just a tiny bit better, down 3.1%. Bonds, kind of interesting too, were up on the day, of course, as you would think that they would be. They were up on the open about 30, 40 basis points, and they gave it all back. They did finish green on the day, but they're just, they were not a place to hide in either for the day. Gold, silver, those also, basically everything down, except for the VIX and I think maybe Bitcoin or something. Yeah, we'll talk about the technicals and kind of things to watch. One of the things that I said on Twitter earlier was that for these pullbacks, right, whenever we get either a multi-day pullback or a pretty severe pullback, for me, it's always the same playbook, right? I tend to look at the same things, and I look for confirmation, right? I'm never looking to basically, catch a falling knife and so forth. So we'll talk about some levels to watch. We'll talk about some things that I'm watching in the next day or two. Obviously, one of the things that you've heard me say over and over, and probably everybody for that matter, is that we just have so many events going on. And, one thing that I admit wasn't something that, that I would have thought would derail the market this week was, is what's going on with the coronavirus and especially with Europe. We heard both Macron came on today and said that they're basically shutting non-essential retail and shutting various different restaurants and so forth for at least a month. And same thing over in Germany with Merkel. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be very tough for them, and we don't know where that's going to take us in terms of here, and we have no stimulus program because the politicians are jerking everybody around. To be sorry to be quite frank about it, but that's what it is. So, but on, silver lining, which I've said as well, is, if you're doing a good job this week, you're staying a little bit to the sidelines. And then hopefully we'll see some buying opportunities next week. I've said now for weeks that we need to get through this time frame. Besides everything, all those COVID headlines that are going on, just a huge week of earnings. And I'm not one to think that the election should really impact the markets that much, but I don't control the money, right? I don't know who's going to basically get scared and say, hey, I'm going to move money to the sidelines. As we know, institutions control the market, not the retail guys. And when they take the money, off the table, it's going to have an effect, in the price action and in the overall market. So that said, that's my quick 2-3 minute spiel on what I see for the markets. Let's just talk about sectors just for a minute. We'll talk a little bit about the home builders. They outperformed a bit today. That was notable. It still finished down on the session, but various times of the day, in the morning, as well as around 3 o'clock, 3:30 today, they did go green. But of course, they just once the overall market sold off even further at the end of the day, they could not hold up either. Metals and mining, a lot of energy based. The gold miners were amongst the worst performer of the day. When I look at the worst performer list, I do see silver miners, gold miners, right? So I've heard this before, and I'm not calling anybody out by this, but I've heard people say, oh, you got to buy gold going into the election. Nope, that's not the right trade. And I've said that before too. I heard somebody about a month ago say the only thing I would be buying here is gold miners. That's, again, that is not going to hold up under certain circumstances. So again, I just mentioned this because some people think that gold is a safety asset. It's not, in my opinion, right? So you have to pay attention to the price action and so forth. But gold just, you could see by the action today in the gold miners, they are not a safety place. What else kind of got hit? The internet stocks, which performed decently. We'll go over some of the earnings reports. Pinterest was a huge winner, so kind of bucking the move. I want to talk about that name in a second too, but I wanted to give you kind of just the overview of what performed better. Some of the solar names, of course, on the back of First Solar, did better today too. So here's where we are in terms of the S&P. Note that we made it all the way through the value area. So if you've in the trading room, I mentioned this a couple times. Let's go backwards now. So this is the daily chart. We broke value a couple days ago, and the 80% rule was triggered, and we did go all the way through the value area. So 3264 is going to be the level to watch for tomorrow and through the overnight session. But a couple of things just to point out here in the 1 hour chart. Number one, I said that once we took this virgin point of control out just 2 days ago, I said if we did not hold that, we don't have a lot of support for a while down. And sure enough, like this S1, which is an extension away from this week's value area, that was a speed bump. As often these S1, S2, as well as R1, R2, these extensions away, they can provide what I refer to as a speed bump, right? And we saw that earlier in the week, and we did bounce off of that. And I mentioned yesterday, if you were playing for a bounce, you got it in some names. What I said was don't be greedy, in terms of the bounce yesterday, because it was not on good breath yesterday. So, I think if you're kind of listening to what I've been saying through the week and the last couple of weeks, I think I'm pretty pleased with how we've been kind of navigating this market. Am I happy about every trade? No, and I'm down money today. Which I haven't done the best thing in terms of staying completely on the sidelines as well. It's tough to manage a trading room and to sit on your hands all day long, but really that's been the best thing to kind of do. And the other thing, so a couple things, so just a couple other points here. But yes, once we broke this S1, there really was no major support, and there's another line down here. But I said that we could fall down to this point of control. Excuse me, not the point of control, but the bottom of value. I just, did I think it would happen in one day? No. I thought it would take a little bit longer for us to get down here. But I said that there was kind of an air pocket in terms of if we broke that level. Also, one other thing that was taken out, just to be a little bit more positive, even though closing on the lows of the day is not a positive thing. And I'll review the VIX too, which closed on the highs. Those are not positive things. However, we are at that support on the daily chart. And on the 5-minute chart, you're going to see it takes think or swim a while to crunch the data, especially because this version point of control is from a long time ago. But you should see it come up on the screen probably in about 5 seconds. But that's, so we did take out that level too. Again, we're still waiting here. Let's just make sure I've got the right chart up. Yep. We'll just give it another 5 or 10 seconds here. But so that's the good thing, is that we did take out levels that I think needed to be taken out to the downside. If we go all the way there and we leave those levels, then it can be an issue. All right, so there it is. Like I said, Thinkorswim takes a while to crunch the data. But that version point of control, I can't even bring it up because it's so old. That's from all the way back here on the 5-minute bar, right? So we've talked about this before, that there is a memory to this market, and it will seek out other areas. So again, version point of control is when price does not go through a point of control during the period. So again, you could look at most of these and you'll see price will go through the point of control. This one was still left behind. It's kind of like a dead body that's left behind. Well, it's been taken out. So we still have, now I'm not saying that this marks the bottom. What we need is confirmation, because there is another virgin point of control on the 1 hour that would take us back to the September low. So again, I'll give you these levels. I throw out some levels to kind of watch in every one of these videos. For me, I would really, really like to see this 32.64 hold. Now, we could break it intraday, and as long as we get back above it. Keep in mind, we only have 2 more days of October, but we'll see if we bounce from here. If we don't, and if 3264 gets taken out with a vengeance, then yes, I would watch this 3232.75. That'll be the next level to watch on the downside. All right, so what I kind of do, as I mentioned, kind of checklist, right? We look to see where there's support. The next thing I want to talk about is the VIX, right? So when the VIX does something like this, and I tweeted this out earlier, when it closes on the highs like this, I think we need more time, right? If we had a candle that looked like, very toppy looking like this, now we're onto something. And who knows, maybe we get that tomorrow. But usually when we close on the highs like this and take out a prior high, I think you want to be more conservative. Or at least of course, I can't tell you what to do. I'm not giving out any advice or recommendations. But for me, when I see a full green bar like this for the VIX, it just means kind of be patient and let this tape materialize, and let's see if we can get some type of confirmation. But I think that could be coming. Who knows? So there's some data that just crossed the tape. The Regeneron antibody cocktail reduced virus levels. Well, I guess that's good. Let's see what Regeneron is doing here amongst the other movers. Regeneron is moving up a bit on that one. Again, another name that fell today. So the VIX, that has to come in, right? I don't want to see that close on the highs like it did. So that just means to kind of hold off a little bit in the short term. I also look at the put-call ratio, right? The equity put-call ratio. Let me see the other one. Sorry. Intraday. Right? So this now, like, the only way that I ever use the equity put-call ratio is for a contrarian signal. Right? So now we've got some fear in the market. We hadn't seen that really until this week, right? So that's kind of just checking another box, right? When we have a dip or a correction in the market, we do want to see this put-call ratio get very high, where people are buying a lot more puts, right? Because it's a contrarian signal. People usually buy puts at the wrong time, when it's too late. So that's what we have going on today. It's the, oh no, I need to hedge myself. So check that box for contrarian, one of those things that needs to happen during a correction. We got that now. So next, I think we'll also need to see some interesting call activity, right? I use cheddar flow quite a bit. To me, there really wasn't anything that stood out to me in terms of call activity today. There was some, there was small trades. Right? At the end of the day, there was a little bit of buying, and I believe, because most of them have open interest, but in some China names, for example. But I mean, it's small stuff. I kept looking for that throughout today's session, and if you kind of see what I wrote, I just said that I just kept on saying that I'm not seeing a lot of call activity. This was something that I wrote midday. Trust me, I'm looking to buy something on the dip, but it's quiet. And the other thing is, if it's not there, it's not there. I talked about too, one of the things that I look at, not for so much to see if a correction is ending. But for a little bit of dips, right? I want to make sure that I don't get sucked in at the wrong time frame. And what I noticed today was that we did get pretty oversold, right around 10 o'clock this morning, right on this particular bar. The RSI got to a 12, right? So when things bounce a little bit, which was here, right? I said, hey, just be careful of this. All we're doing is we got really oversold on the 1 hour bar. So don't chase it. And I think that worked out pretty well. All right. So put call ratio, we talked about the VIX. We talked about the price action. We don't know if that's going to hold up. We talked about how there really wasn't much buying the dip that I saw in options. So does that mean that we can't reverse for tomorrow just because I'm not seeing any confirmation? No, it doesn't mean that. But it means I don't feel confident yet in the price action that I'm seeing. Even if I saw some more of those things, would I be ready? Would I be buying a ton of things today, knowing that we've got all these names reporting tomorrow and we've got an election next week? No, but maybe I would be doing a little bit more nibbling, into this. So I will show you my trades for the day, as always. You could see I tried a couple things like Peloton in the morning. It didn't work, right? So here's a good example. Right? It's okay trying trades, but just make sure you've got to stop. That's the main thing too. I see too many people, too many newer traders. They try a trade, it doesn't work, and they leave it on because they don't want to admit that they're wrong. That's to me a recipe for disaster. Get over your ego, and if you put on a trade, it's okay to take it off if it's a little bit of a loss. Remember, you don't want big losses. So this is one, for example. That intraday or intrabar, it looked like it was going to turn, and I was looking for. Oh, that was actually here, and once it faded, I got out of this trade, right? But I show you these trades that don't work because it should be how you're learning a little bit, right? So I got out of this one for a $2 loss around 12 o'clock. Netflix, I was trading in and out of for a little bit. I made some money on Netflix early. I let it come back into me. It really didn't do much for the day. I sold it a couple times up here. Once it came in, I gave up on it. Right. But I'll tell you, it's the worst thing. From speaking from experience, I used to do this too. It's the worst thing that you could possibly do to have your ego in the way of saying, "Oh, I can't take this off. I'm going to have, it's lower than the price that I bought." The quicker that you can get over these things, the better you're going to be on days where we get cleaned out like this, when the indices get cleaned out. But yeah, here's Netflix. One target to go, then I added back. And the add back, I got a couple targets, and the last piece did not work. I bailed on it. I bailed on the Peloton. Tulio worked. A member brought this to my attention. We'll keep an eye on this one tomorrow. But was up 3.7% today. So this is the kind of stuff to look for. When you have a washout day like this, Twilio, there's nothing wrong with their earnings report, by the way. They just, of course, ran into it on the pre-guidance, which we talked about. Whenever a name gives you guidance before their earnings date, there's not much to really think that they're going to do on their earnings day. So I think that was the situation there. But look at the nice recovery today. So I think this is definitely one to watch for tomorrow. Resistance will be up to 315. A couple other ones. I put on a little bit of a square position. Again, I'll try some trades. I'm not going to 100% sit to the sidelines. So I do nibble, right? So Square, this thing has been coming down for a while. Again, there's no confirmation. There's a virgin point of control taken out, but there's no signal in this yet. We're below value. This, I do think it has a possibility to rally back to the bottom of value. But where I would bail on this trade is if it takes out this virgin point of control from back here. All right, because there is another one lower down here. But I think multiple days of moving lower. All right, and I think that's it. My two trades that I put on for earnings. I did take, sometimes you have to take small targets too. I got out of this Twilio and it went a little bit higher, but in my opinion, I don't want to be greedy. Trying to hold out for a big winner. Not on days like this. Not on weeks like this. The other thing that I forgot to mention when I went over the 1 hour chart is remember when we lost the trend, right? I spent a lot of time on this last week. That once we broke, and I think it's good to kind of reflect on this type of thing. Once we broke the 200 period moving average as well as the bottom of value, look at what the price has done since. Feeble attempts to retake it, right? We almost got there towards the end of last week, but that's not it, right? Almost doesn't count. So since we broke the trend, it's been a nightmare, right? And again, that's why I pay so much attention to the 1 hour chart, because if you're trading shorter term, right, meaning not long term, price was above this 200 period moving average. Once it broke, it's kind of been a nightmare since then, and that was all the way back here, right? That was back over a week ago, because today's Wednesday. So, these simple things like this, watching the short-term trend, can really help you out, right, in terms of what the overall picture looks like. All right. Did I want to mention any other names? I've mentioned pins. Really interesting, too. This thing's up to 64, bucking the trend. Interesting to see how this thing closed. Do you think anybody knew about this stock, that this was going to do this? Look at how the price fell into the close. So here, I was going to mention I knew there was one other thing, and then we'll end today's video. But here's my two trades. One of the things that I look for when I'm playing earnings is consistency. Look at the last 10 quarters of how ServiceNow. Look at the price action. 8 out of the last 10 quarters, it's rallied. Those are the names that the consistent names are the ones that I will give a shot to. So I sold a put spread. I wasn't going to play this thing on the long side. It's been too difficult. But I did put on a bullish trade. Right, I sold premium. I sold the put spread 475, 465. What I do is I look at the implied move. Right, and then what I do is look to see, where this will line up, in terms of the value areas. And 475, I was hoping that we would stay above value, and we did better than that. It is up after hours. So, so far they haven't gotten through the conference call yet, but so far that trade's looking good. The other trade that I put in, similar type of trade, bullish put spread, where I sold. I couldn't get a lot for this one. I was going to make this into an iron condor, but I just left it as is. I also sold a put spread for this one. Now, similar concept for me. Shop usually has pretty decent earnings, right? Same thing, I think, out of the 10 quarters, 8 of them, the price has gone up. So I stick with the trend. So we'll see how Shop does tomorrow morning. All right, but here's my trade. I sold this week's $9.95, $9.80 put spread and collected $5. So you can see how I'll do tomorrow. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.